Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Combat Sports UK podcast. This is the MMA edition, up to episode 5. So we're making some headway. I'm joined by Alex Haynes. Alex, how are we? How's your weekend been? What's happening, mate?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just about recovering from the beatdown I received from Nathan last week for being late and missing an episode. But I'm here on time this week. I'm not ill. Good. I'm good. I'm ready to go. How are you?
Yeah, I can absolutely testify you are on time. You're actually early. So I'm going to give you a chance to bite back at Nathan. He's just decided to hop off on holiday. You know, I'm recording this a couple of days early, even though I'm going on holiday. So go on, jump in on Nathan. Get back to him, mate. Because he dished it out to you last week, I've got to say.
He did, didn't he? Yeah, but it's not my style. Never has been, never will be. But you never know. I might have a sneaky dig when I'm on with him next. So we'll see how it goes.
Amazing. I might have to mediate between you two on the. Maybe we'll do a big preview episode next week for Islam and Oliveira. So I might have to mediate a bit there, trying to get in the middle, referee it.
Sounds good. I'm up for it.
Yeah. But all good on my end. Thanks for asking, mate. Yeah, all good. Just surviving the heat out here in Europe. It's quite ridiculous for October. But all good when you have some amazing fights to look at. We'll start at the finish. Kind of, for me anyway, the surprise of the weekend. Bobby Green completely destroying Grant Dawson, really. After, what was it, 30 seconds or something like that? What was your thoughts on that opinion, on that fight, sorry?
MMA is just so crazy, man. We never really learn, do we? We know that crazy things can happen all the time in the sport, but there are still so many results that we just don't see coming. And this was one of those. Nathan and I basically gave Bobby Green no chance in this fight on the last podcast, and then Green goes out there and does that. It's not like we gave him like completely zero chance, but we said that Dawson would pretty much have his way with Green. I thought if Green was going to win, it wasn't going to be like that, you know. Basically the first punch he threw in the first round, and this is extra shocking as well if you take into account the fact that before this fight he only had 2 wins via knockout on his UFC record, and then he starches a guy like Dawson straight away. It might raise a few eyebrows, but I actually think this is, I wrote an article about Bobby Green, and I said that in that article, I said that if he were to beat Dawson, then it would probably be the biggest win of his career since the Josh Thompson win anyway. I'll stand by that, you know, maybe not in terms of a name, but in terms of like the stylistic matchup, where this puts him in his career, the fact that he's just beaten a top 10 up and coming prospect that everyone expected him to lose to. So, what a way for Grant Dawson to taste his first defeat in the UFC. Pretty wild, right?
It really was. It really was. Like, I was similar to you guys. I wasn't seeing how Bobby Green was going to get this done. I was a little bit questioning why he'd gotten this opportunity, to be honest, because yes, he beat Tony Ferguson last time out. You know, everyone says the same thing. The artist formerly known as Tony Ferguson. You can see why Bobby Green's a main eventer. He's a personality. He's an exciting fighter. He brings it. You know, he's never in boring fights. But you just kind of look at Dawson's stock, and it's really good. You know, he beat Damir Ismagulov last time out, who served him his first defeat, so he took his own. He was kind of surging in the division. Everyone was kind of talking about him as maybe a dark horse in the division, and that division so full of killers. And you kind of talk about, you know, Gamrot, who was at a main event a couple of weeks ago, and people like that, and you just think, wow, now Bobby Green's in with that mix. And as for the finish itself, I mean, he didn't even. I mean, even him and DC said like they thought he threw a right, but you actually look at it and he kind of stepped into this left. Doesn't look to generate much power from it, but it's just one of those, I guess, the punches you don't see coming and the ones that get you, right? And yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was really kind of like, wow, I did not see Bobby Green being able to do that. I wonder if there was something going on with Grant Dawson. He didn't look to want to engage that much. He kind of, I don't know, he looked a bit standoffish to me. He was kind of holding his distance at the fence a little bit. and allowing Bobby to come onto him. So I don't know if there was some mitigating circumstances going on there. Nothing away from Bobby Green. Fantastic performance. And he's really seized that opportunity now. I'm very, very surprised. I'm very surprised. Like, it's a shock for that division, I think. A big time shock. When you look at Bobby Green's career like that, Josh Thompson, when you mentioned, was 2014. That's a long time ago, right? In
exactly.
MMA as well.
Yeah.
And I think, when I was looking through his record, he was debuting kind of in 2008. I mean, we're talking now that's 14 or so years ago. So it's quite a mad one, and it's an interesting question as to where you go with Bobby Green next. How much will his star rise on the back of this fight? Where do you take him next? What are your thoughts? Where do you think he goes next off the back of this win, considering the picture at lightweight at 155?
I'm not sure if you give him another top 10 right away. If you look at the rankings, I'm not sure if it makes all that much sense. I mean, and you got Dan Hooker at number 9. So I think Dan Hooker was calling out Green as well, and I think he's recently just said that he would like that fight. So yeah, he's probably the only one in the top 10 that would kind of make sense for me right now. I believe Hooker is like I said, he's interested in that fight, and I think that would be quite a fun matchup. So if Hooker is interested in that, I mean, we could go for that. What do you reckon?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I kind of finished watching the fight. I didn't watch the press conference or anything, and I kind of went through the rankings. I remember having the conversation about Gamrot a few weeks ago, talking how he doesn't fight down. So it's almost a similar thing. You say, okay, well, who does he fight now? Because he goes in at 10 or 12. I don't remember exactly where Dawson was, but it's one of those two. Dan Hooker is the one who makes sense. Absolutely, he's the one that makes sense. I don't think you put Bobby against anybody lower than that. You're looking at Dos Anjos, Turner, Moicano. I think, having seen on social media the press conference, Bobby has shrugged off Moicano. He's obviously the lower ranked fighter, and he said, "Yeah, Dan Hooker kind of let's do it. The timeline fits." I think Dan, he broke a few things, right, in his last fight. The timeline fits with what Bobby said he wanted. He said he wanted a December fight. Why not spice up 296 a bit more? Throw on some Dan Hooker and some Bobby Green. I think that's a killer fight. I really, really like that fight in terms of the styles. I think it's a real fun one.
Yeah, like you say, I think it does make sense. I mean, I think it's like I was saying, it's kind of the only fight in the top 10 I think makes sense for Bobby Green now. And then if he does go up into the top 10, I think you got to make that Hooker fight, and I think that'll be pretty wild and pretty crazy. I think I would, even though Green's just shocked the world, I think I would fancy Hooker in that one, but I think it would be fun while it lasted.
Yeah, totally. I think it makes sense for Hooker coming back as well. I mean, sticking with the lightweight division, we're going to jump a little bit on the card. I want to go to Drew Dober, because he's also in the lightweight division. He was in a similar position to Bobby Green, kind of coming into his fight, kind of on the cusp of that top 15. And I thought he looked so impressive. What was your take on Drew Dober? How did you feel about him coming into this fight, and what was your take on his performance?
Well, I mentioned last week that I thought, Drew Dober was finished in his last fight by Favola, and I thought that he wasn't going to have any problems here, like any psychological problems coming into this. As some fighters can get a bit tentative after they've been finished, but I didn't think that was going to happen with Dober, and it didn't at all. Dober with that power, I thought Glenn's head movement, and it just wasn't there. I think a lot of us saw this one coming. To be honest, I knew this would happen. His pressure game was brilliant. Glenn couldn't hang with him at all. Dober is just a treat to watch when he's on. Mm-hmm. And there were so many fun fights at lightweight for him. Great performance. He just put it on Glenn. So yeah, I mean, he's looking really good at the moment. I think you take it up a notch for the next one. Step up in competition and see how he does. But yeah, I can't wait for the next Drew Dober fight, to be honest.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, the Favola fight was really exciting as well, and you would think Favola's going up against Saint Denis, so kind of where Drew Dober is in the division. I think that's maybe one you throw to Moicano. Moicano's pretty keen for a fight. you know, I think if you're Moicano, if you're looking up, you're looking at maybe a Sarukian, who's just been announced as the backup for Islam and Child. So he's off the table. Other than that, you're looking at maybe a Jalen Turner if you're going to put him up against people that he's fought, because otherwise you've got Bobby Green, obviously, who won. Do you give him Grant Dawson off the back of Grant Dawson's loss? I don't think so. I think Dawson,
No,
I think
no.
Dober was impressive enough to have the clout to say, yeah, I want to fight up. And I would think Moicano or Turner would be pretty good for him. And it also kind of puts another name into the lightweight division if he can be on, like you said, because he does very much jump in and out of form a little bit. He's a little bit inconsistent, but yeah, I mean, I thought he looked really, really, really good. And I mean, I wanted to jump to that fight because it was still within the lightweight picture. It's so tight in that lightweight division. I know Dana mentioned, I saw something during the week that he's talking about top 20s now, as opposed to top 15s. And I think at lightweight, it'd be super useful. It'd be super useful. Where do you want to go next from this card?
Oh, well, I was just going to mention about kind of Rick Glenn and the way he was kind of grabbing the gloves. Chris Toney, he didn't do anything about it, and I was just wondering what your opinion was on that. Should he be doing more about that, and should we be talking more about the fact that Toney is got to be doing something about that? I mean, it didn't make any difference in the end. I mean, it didn't help him. But what do you think about that?
I think when it's that obvious, right? When it's that obvious, and it's not even like it was just a brief one. Like he held him there for a good 3 or 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, you ain't going anywhere." And then Tony almost kind of half stepped in to kind of say, oh, "Stop that," but he didn't look to have any authority. You think if that's a Goddard, for example, if that's a Goddard, he's getting in there and he's splitting it and possibly taking a point. You know?
Yeah. Definitely, Goddard, probably Smith Mark Smith as well probably does that, and also maybe even Herb Dean. I think these guys do something about it, but Toyoni, he could be a bit inconsistent at times, I feel.
Yeah, it seemed like it, but then again, I think one of the things that's got to be ironed out maybe in MMA is at what point do you take points? I think we see a lot of inconsistency across the board with eye pokes, groin strikes, now this holding the glove, holding the fence. You see quite a lot, even toes in the fence. I think maybe that's the next thing for the referees to look at. Obviously, there's been some controversy now around the judging and things like that, but in situations like that, I mean, come on, it's quite clearly seeking an advantage through an illegal method. It was just so obvious, man. It was just so obvious.
Right? Yeah, and I think if referees do start taking points in situations like that, this fighters will kind of stop doing it. I mean, eventually, I mean, you'll still get them. And obviously with those gloves, it's difficult, isn't it, sometimes to avoid having your fingers straight out. But I still think that eye pokes will go down as well. You take some points away, and they'll make more of an effort to kind of keep that closed fist or be straight up in the air instead of outstretched. So yeah, I think if the referees do start taking more points in these situations, then people will stop doing it.
Yeah, it's a real weird one. I have a feeling we're going to come back to eye pokes. But let's jump to Big Joe Pyfer. What a performance! What a performance from Joe Pyfer. How impressed were you by him?
Oh, he looked so good, didn't he? The second round submission on triangle. He's so aggressive, and he just fights to end it. This is such a decent win, and he has bags of potential. I think right now he needs to step up in competition because he wasn't challenged here really, and now's the time to see if he's for real. You know, he can make waves at middleweight. It's not the strongest division, and there are a lot of fights for him there. But it's crazy times at 185 right now. You know, Strickland is champion, Bo Nickel on the rise, got Paul Craig. Never a dull moment with him. So we'll see if Pyfer see what he can do. But he looks so strong, didn't he? He picked this man up, slammed him down.
God,
got the sub. The sub was like proper nasty to watch as well. Like it was a stranger one. It was was it a tap? Was it not? At first I thought he was trying to throw some shots, but I think it probably was a tap because considering the position that he was in, I think it was probably a bit of like get me out of here kind of thing. So yeah, but there's a lot to like about Pyfer. So what did you make of the fight?
I thought it was super exciting. I thought he just looked so much bigger Like, it was actually quite striking to think. And when you think about, we'll obviously come on to him, but Buckley beforehand, it kind of looked like Al Hassan was kind of like a Buckley at 185, a bit smaller and stockier, quite well built, and just looking to land the power, which he has in the past. But you can just see against these guys that are probably coming closer towards 205, really, when you factor in the weight cut and everything like that. Similar to Paul Craig. And Joe Piper just looked so much bigger. He looked so much faster. He had the edge everywhere, I think, and it was just a really, really good performance. And he moves forward. I took like that. That submission was quite nasty to watch, because you hear the referee say to him, "Did you tap?" After he kind of did
Yeah.
his strikes, and it's close to its strike, so it's not tapping in so much as
Mm.
they're saying. I mean, if you're Joe Piper, yeah, you got to hold on to it, I guess. But you want to see. It's one of those. I had the debate with Nathan a couple of weeks ago about when should the referee get in there and stop it. And with that one, it's a real grey area, I think, because you can see he's going to go out. You can see he's not really getting out of that position. And I don't know. It's a real odd one. I think you can't take anything away from the performance of Piper. Al Hassan just didn't look like he should be in there with him. He looked leveled
No.
below, and maybe he needs to look at the Joaquin Buckley method and maybe drop down to 170. I don't know if he's fought there before or not. But I think he would, maybe needs to discipline up a little bit more in camp. And yeah, get to it a little bit, kind of drop down and get away from those middleweights, because it looked a bit scary at times. Like you said, he was picking him up, throwing him around, didn't really look to struggle with him.
Yeah, he had his way with him, didn't he? Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, and then with Joe Piper, again, it's another one where you're just kind of looking up the division. Somebody like Ponzinibbio or Ali Jingliang would be a good fight for him, I think. I can't recall if Jingliang is still ranked. If he is, he's definitely 13 or 14, somewhere
Yeah,
around
I'm not
there.
sure, but I think that's a good shout, actually. Yeah, now that you say it, that would probably be a good one.
Yeah, and then even if you really want to push him, you probably throw him against the Jack Manson. Right, Jack Manson's up there at 9 or 10, hasn't fought in a while. Don't think he's got a fight booked. Doesn't seem to fight that often, really. So he might be one you look to throw Joe Piper in, depending on what the UFC want to do with him, really. But like you said, it's interesting at middleweight. All you really need to do is kind of string together one or two big wins. If you can get a Hermanson and then maybe one more, you could be looking towards a title shot, really. I don't think, if he can be active in 2024, who knows with Joe Piper. The Joe Piper we saw last this morning for us, you could see it. You could see it in the next year or so. You think about the way Pereira ran through people. Who knows? Who knows in that division, really? So speaking of Buckley and guys that should go down to welterweight, what do we think of Joaquin Buckley?
Buckley looked really good. Nathan and I touched on it a bit last week. Said that the welterweight is definitely his division. He's a big guy. I mean, he's probably got a cut a lot, but he looks good here, and he's powerful. He's athletic. He was absolutely the better fighter. I thought he slowed down a little bit towards the end, but that's because he was swinging big. But he's a specimen, and Morono was out-muscled. I feel like he's not far. I feel like Buckley's not far from a big fight in this division now. I'm not sure about a main event next, because I think he was asking for that, wasn't he? But maybe after one more win against a ranked guy. Lots to think about here with Buckley as he kind of enters his prime. But I'll look forward to it. But yeah, I think probably one more win, and I'd like to see him in a main event. What's your opinion on that matter?
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, I think Joaquin Buckley looked really impressive. Back to the kind of Joaquin Buckley who did that to Kasanganay those years ago. Now that knockout of the year, I think he looks aggressive. He looks fit. He looks sharp. He looks in really, really good shape, and I really, really like that weight cut for him. I like him down at 170. Saw a lot of videos in the run up of him just joking around and having a laugh, and I think they touched on it in commentary as well. He would kind of lighten up the place during the week, so it doesn't sound like the weight cut was too hard, unless he was kind of putting it on a little bit. So maybe he has done kind of what we were saying Al Hassan almost needs to do. sort it out a little bit and to kind of get some discipline and maybe try and get down to 170. But yeah, I mean, what was really impressive for me was how Buckley changed from rounds 1 to 2, because I think I remember in round 1 he was going into his corner and they were kind of saying, "Oh, you can't quite find your pace in there," or something like that. He said to his corner. I think possibly in the third he could maybe have finished the fight. He could have pushed a little bit more. And just as a shout out to Nathan, we've had a couple of discussions about scoring, and it seemed like there was a 10-8 in there from hearing the judges' scorecards. And I think this is what I would call a Nathan 10-8, where one fighter dominated the round, but it wasn't a complete obliteration, which Nathan would call a 10-7, which I would lean more towards a 10-8. So there's a shout to Nathan. He's finally kind of made sense with that being a 10. But I thought Buckley deserved it. I totally agree with you. I don't think he is a main event fighter yet. I like the call and everything, but I think, get him a co-main against one of the bigger guys in the division. I dropped the wrong names in the discussion before. This was the names I meant to mention. Li Jingliang, because he's obviously at welterweight. So yeah, that for Buckley would be a good fight.
That's right. Yeah,
yeah,
of course.
I was getting completely confused with my notes there, but yeah.
When you said his name, though, I was like, "Oh, that's a good fight." But yeah, it's a different division. Yeah.
Joe Piper would murder him, I think, anyway, if he went down. But no, I like that fight. I like that fight for Buckley. I think that's the kind of one that gets him a co-main event, even a top bill event on a pay-per-view, probably, because Jingliang seems to pop up in those spots, doesn't he? Really, the last few fights he had. How would you see that going? The correct call, Buckley and Jingliang.
That would be a fun one. Yeah, I wouldn't be against that at all, and I think that it would be a fairly even matchup. I think, and I think it's the right way to go at this point in Buckley's career. So yeah, I think that if he kind of makes a statement with a win over a guy like that, then we could see him really kind of pushing for a main event. And who knows? I mean, like, I think this guy's ceiling is pretty high, and it's sometimes guys rocket to the top really fast, and sometimes they take a little while to figure it out. And I think it's taken a while to figure it out, but I think he's going to get there. And I really like his potential. And as I said before, he's kind of entering his prime now. So I think that give him a fight like that, and then if he does, I think you'll have to kind of make a statement there, but then give him a main event. Yep.
And so what's really interesting when you look at Buckley's record, one of the losses on his record is to one Kevin Holland. So that maybe sets up a bit of a narrative. If Kevin Holland slips up, as he kind of tends to yo-yo, doesn't he? That could be a nice little setup. I wouldn't mind seeing that again with a more evolved Joaquin Buckley further down the line, after maybe a Jingliang or somebody like that, because that could even get you a main event. If you look at this week's main event, somebody like a Kevin Holland gets you a main event on a fight night. So if you're Buckley, maybe you push for that fight. Other than anybody else at this stage, kind of at welterweight, I think you've got to wait for somebody to lose, because it's such a lit division right now. With Sean Brady, Jack Della, Gary, these types of guys, they to me seem miles away for Joaquin Buckley right now. These Shavkats and people like that. That seems almost 3 or 4 fights down the road for him. So I think he needs a couple more to kind of get over his will he, won't he, drop one, win one, lose one, swinging up the weight classes. But yeah, the future's bright for him at this point. Great fight, great performance. The future's very bright. So on to another great performance. You wanted to talk about Bill Algeo. Go ahead, wax lyrical about your man Bill Algeo.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was a bit of a banger, actually. A really fun fight to start off the main card. I mentioned Hernandez's gas tank last week not being great, but he actually looked okay here, I thought. But Algeo was striking with Hernandez, and he caught him, rocked him a couple of times. The output and the volume was really good. It's a nice win for him. I'm just not sure what happens with Hernandez, to be honest, because I mentioned before he's so inconsistent. There are fights, I believe there are fights that he can win at featherweight, but I can't really see him breaking through. Not in featherweight or lightweight, to be honest. But yeah, he did look better than I thought he was going to. But Aljo, yeah, he deserved the win and he looked really good. What do you reckon?
Agreed. Yeah. I think the same. I think Aljo just had a really nice style to watch. Kind of one of those almost Stephen Thompson-esque styles that you just enjoy watching, right? As the fight goes on, I thought he controlled it really well. Dropped him, obviously. I think it was in the second round with a really, really well placed shot. And I just think, yeah, Hernandez just couldn't seem to get it going. He's somebody who kind of exploded onto the scene in the UFC, and then I think he dropped. I remember him being super cocky going in against Donald Cerrone, and then Donald Cerrone just kind of, I think he just armbarred the hell out of him, and really ripped his shoulder to pieces. If I remember it correctly, it was a few years ago now. And
yeah,
since
I think he dropped him with the head kick, didn't he? And then subbed him.
That's it. Yeah. And I think since then he just hasn't looked the same. He hasn't been able to put it back together. I don't know if that really shook him, and really caused him to question himself, put a lot of pressure on him as he goes into these fights. But I agree with you. Like I think he's somebody who'll be consistent in the UFC, and then one day it'll click for him. Because I think he's a young lad. Is he not? Is he not mid to late 20s? So he's got a future ahead of him if he can overcome this kind of hump that he seems to get into. You know, he doesn't seem to turn up. Some other notable mentions on the card: Karolina Kowalkiewicz picking up the win on the undercard. Always great to see her win. She's a great personality in the sport. And did you see the TKO? Who then got woke up by the next punch on the undercard?
No, I didn't. You'll have to tell me about that because I didn't catch that one.
So this was a bit of a wild one. I kind of saw the highlight on social media, and it was if I just find it now on the card, it was, I believe, the Mateus Mendonça fight. So they're kind of, I think, Kevin Holland, Jacare Souza, that kind of position, and he's on top of him. He hits him with a solid ground strike and knocks him out. You see his eyes go, and he's all back. He's all facing back, and his eyes are gone. And then he hits him again, and you see him wake back up. And the referee doesn't stop it. And it kind of goes to a bit more of a scramble. And then in the end, he does finish it with the ground and pound. But yeah, it's a real wild one. It was on social media kind of as I was scrolling through today, and then I was like, whoa, that's a bit mad. But yeah, he hits him once. You see him go out, his head goes and everything, and then he hits him again and he just wakes him straight back up. So, but yeah, those are the notable mentions for me from that card. Do you want to go straight into Bellator 300, or have you got anything else from the UFC you want to touch on quickly?
Oh, I'm happy to go into Bellator if you are.
Go for it, mate. It's all on you because I've only seen the finishes kind of online.
Yeah, cool. Well, you could say you can make an argument that Bellator kind of looked like the better event this weekend on paper. But I think at the end of the day, the UFC did kind of steal the show with the performances. You had Usman Nurmagomedov. He kind of ran through his opponent, Primus. He's a problem for a lot of guys, I think, and I think he would be even in the UFC. Like most of the time here, it was almost like he was on autopilot. Like it wasn't the most exciting fight, but the first two rounds were good. It just wasn't a challenge for him, though. He seemed to see everything coming his way. But yeah, we also saw, one of the best female MMA stars of all time, Chris Cyborg. She destroyed Kat Zingano. She wasn't going to be taken down in this one at all. Fairly easy for Cyborg. Zingano didn't really try too much different. I thought she didn't really mix it up very well. She did connect with a few wild punches there, but didn't offer too much. There was the McFarlane and Carmouche fight. Unfortunate injury there for McFarlane. I mean, it just wasn't her weekend at all, was it? Really?
No, weight missing everything.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So yeah, and Carmouche, she went on a tear after the UFC, didn't she? And after that loss to Shevchenko, and but it was a bit of a strange fight, and the ref wasn't too happy with the inactivity in that one, and kind of shouted at them to do a bit more. So
Did he?
it wasn't really, yeah. So it wasn't really a good look, to be honest. But what stood out for me was Leah McCourt, though. She got a nice finish. She's set up now to face Cyborg in the title fight.
Okay.
And I'm really happy for her. So she ended up on top after kind of reversing a takedown attempt, and she showed some really good takedown defense throughout that as well, really. And she began beating up Sarah McMahon on the ground with the stoppage. She now has 7 wins in a 9-fight Bellator career, and I would look forward to a matchup with Cyborg.
Yeah, she's doing pretty well if Bellator's still around long enough for it to.
Well, yeah, exactly. We still don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but whether it's, I don't know, UFC or Bellator or under the PFL banner, whatever, I would kind of like to see that fight. I think a lot of Bellator fighters could actually fight in the UFC and do well. I'm high on quite a few of those guys over there, especially Patchy Mix, guys like that, Pitbull, Eblin, Pettis, AJ McKee.
Yeah,
but they got some good fighters
Pico as well.
Pico, yeah, he looked great in his last one.
He'd be a lot of fun in the UFC.
He could be a star, that guy. So yeah, I mean, overall it wasn't too bad. I thought, like I said, UFC kind of stole it a bit there with some of the results, especially the Bobby Green fight. But there was some good stuff on the Bellator card.
Well, it's always good to hear that Bellator's still going and still kind of going strong on its last legs, so to speak. A big shout out to Patrick Dana on our side. He was on the ground. He got a really good interview with Chael Sonnen. Spoke to a few other people at the media day. I think Leah McCourt was one of them that he spoke to. What a legend. He's down there grinding. Must have been a great evening for him. So it's a shout out to you, Patrick. So just to wrap up kind of our review of the weekend, I want to go about OKTAGON. OKTAGON 47 took place in Bratislava. Obviously, a promotion that's kind of coming onto our radar a lot of Combat Sports UK. We're covering a lot of OKTAGON Challenge, and also they're coming to Manchester in November. A really good card over in Bratislava. The main event headlined by Vermola versus Lagner. Lagner, the absolute underdog that he is. He's always an underdog and somehow pulls out incredible victories. I was there in Oberhausen when I watched him beat Alexander Popek, who was heavily favoured to beat him. And Lagner still managed to come out and get the interim title. And then poor guy gets absolutely destroyed in 7 seconds by the Terminator. Vermola, like, it was run across the octagon, left hook, bang, he's just down. That was it. End of story. That put kind of the end to a really good card for OKTAGON. If you haven't, go back and watch the second fight on the card. UK's own Megan Morris putting on an incredible comeback performance. All I'll say is at the end of the first round, he was on her stool crying, like she was in tears. You could visibly see how emotional she was. And in the post-fight interview, she kind of says to Brian Lacey, yeah, I was just in my corner questioning what I'm doing with my life. And then she comes back to pull it back in the second with a good grappling display. Same in the third, and then wrapped up a really beautiful armbar with about 13 seconds left to go. And to be honest, on the scorecard, I don't know which way it would have gone, because that first round could easily have been a 10-8, or if you're Nathan Shields, maybe a 10-7. It was really, really great to see her come through that adversity, bounce back, and then come with that victory. If you haven't, the highlights are all over. I think we've reposted it on our Twitter, on our X, whatever it's called, as well as Instagram. Really great finish, but just go and watch the fight and watch her emotion at the end of the first round. That takes us nicely to the end of our wrap up. We're going to take a very, very quick break, and then we'll be back to preview Sodiq Yusuff against Edson Barboza. So stay with us.
At Sports UK.
Welcome back, everybody. MMA podcast. Alex and I still here. We're still going. We hope Nathan's enjoying his cocktails wherever he is. So let's jump into the card this weekend. Sodiq Yusuff and Edson Barboza. I'm going to actually jump right in there and say I am confused as to how Sodiq Yusuff is where he is. He's ranked 11 at the moment, and Barboza is ranked 13. And when I was kind of comparing, obviously Barboza's CV resume, whatever you want to call it, is slightly different because of his background and his history. And he's currently, I think, 3-3 at this weight class at featherweight. And Yusuff, when I was looking at his, I was kind of going down. I was like, okay, he's beaten Alex Caceres, lost to Arnold Allen. Other than that, the next best person he's beaten is Andre Fili, which, we saw him last time out. He's a real legit win. But I'm just kind of looking at it thinking, okay, maybe he's a finishing machine. Decision against Caceres, decision against Fili, decision against Shaman Moraes. Yeah, he won by guillotine choke last time out. So yeah, I'm a little bit kind of looking at it thinking, 11. Okay, that's interesting. Am I missing something? Jump on me here and tell me I'm an idiot, but am I missing something with him?
I wouldn't say you're an idiot, but I'm not superbly high on Yusuff either. I mean, I think he might be one to watch. When as you say, he lost to Arnold Allen, and it's his only loss in the UFC. But he got hurt in that fight, but he kind of kept his composure well, and he managed to stay in the fight. I think he's got some good technical skills. But I think he's been matched up against a dangerous Barboza. I mean, Barboza is, like, as I said, he is dangerous, but he's 37 years old now. So I can see this being kind of a name on Yusuff's record if he's able to get it done.
Yeah.
Barboza did get that really good win over Billy Quarantillo last time out. That KO with the knee, but I think most people have kind of worked out that if you put pressure on him and don't hang out in kicking range, he is beatable. I think that's what we're kind of going to see. I think Yusuff is, I'm not his biggest fan, but I think that he is good enough to beat Barboza. I could see Barboza being on the back foot in this one. Yeah, I mean, is Barboza even ranked at the moment in featherweight?
So according to the UFC, he is 13. And Yusuff is 11.
I've just seen that. Yeah. So, I'm not really sure about this. It's a bit of a strange one, but I think that if Yusuff does manage to get the win, it's a decent kind of name on his record, and that's about it. But where do you go from there if you're Yusuff? If you beat Barboza, then where do you go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't look at Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell's coming off a win. Movsar Evloev also one you could look at, I suppose. He probably won't go as high as Keita, although Keita does need a fight. He hasn't fought in a while. Josh Emmett, he's also kind of past it. And then beyond there, you're kind of looking at the top ranks of the division. I think Yusuff's got to put on a show. I think he's really got to put on a show. It must just be because he's an exciting fighter. It's kind of, when you were looking at it as a main event, you're like, a main event, especially coming off of this week's main event as well. They're kind of they're what you would call apex main events. They're probably, if you put these on a stacked pay-per-view, where are they coming? Maybe late prelims, kind of end of the prelims type thing is where you put a fight like this, maybe on a stacked pay-per-view. Always exciting to watch Barboza. I always look forward to watching his fight. I always kind of have a hope that he is going to win and kind of have one last hurrah, because he's just such an exciting fighter. He always brings it. He's always got a really exciting style if his opponent doesn't cancel him out, which you've kind of seen. I mean, I know when we were talking about Dan Ige, who Barboza lost to, I think that was his debut in the division. Somebody like a Dan Ige is somebody that beats a Barboza, because Ige has that ring octagon craft to shut down someone like a Barboza. The Quarantillo fight, I mean, he just kind of, his style plays into Barboza's. I think you said it really, really well there, that you kind of got to play against Barboza, not play into his hands. You've got to play against him. You've got to shut him down. Don't hang out in kicking range, and just kind of stay a bit safer on the outside, and don't let Barboza catch any kind of rhythm, or let him hit you with any other shot, because he's got power. It translates to this division, even though he's moved down. He's definitely got power. Hopefully it's a great fight. Hopefully it's one of those like this weekend where it just turns up and you just kind of end up eating your words a little bit. because it'd be really great to see Sodiq Yusuff do something incredible to drum up some more excitement for the lower end of that division, because you've kind of got everybody chasing Volk and Max to a certain extent because of the position that Max is in. You want someone to almost grab it a little bit by the horns and say, no, you know what, I'm going to be the next standout of this division. I'm going to be the next Ilya Taporia, because the names above that, Bryce Mitchell, I mean, they're not tremendously exciting. Bryce Mitchell, yeah, because he's a crazy man. Chikadze can be. I think he played a little bit safe in his last fight, but he can be. So, yeah, should be an interesting fight. What's your prediction? Let's get you in for a prediction for Yusuff and Barboza.
I think we are going to see a Yusuff win. I'm going to go with a Yusuff decision, I think.
Okay. So not going for that statement. He's not going to make the statement that we would all like. I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to put those thoughts and those positive vibes out there and go for a Edson Barboza knockout somewhere in the fight. Somewhere in a five round fight. If Barboza doesn't gas, he's got a chance. So
He has that chance, yeah.
I'm going to go there. That's what I'm going to stick with. Next up, Jennifer Maia, Viviane Araujo. Two Brazilians going at it. Kind of in this division, they both kind of dropped off a little bit. Maia especially. They both lost to the same people, really. Chukagian. I'm pretty sure. Does Maia have a loss off of Grasso as well? No, I don't think so. Chukagian, Fiorot, Valentina, of course. Yeah, what's your thoughts on this fight, Viviane and Maia?
I can't say that I'm super excited about this one, but I will say that I think Jennifer Maia, she'll probably have the grappling advantage in this fight. She's had so many high-level fights, hasn't she, and not necessarily won them all. Obviously, we just touched on it there. But at this point, she's kind of fought the who's who of the flyweight division. Yeah, I think Araujo has pretty good boxing skills, but I'm not sure if she'll really get the chance to use it all that much. I think Maia will probably want to take her down and do a lot of work on the floor. Yeah, as I said, I'm not super excited, but if you want to pick, I think I'll have to go Maia by decision on this one. I think that she'll out-grapple Araujo. Yeah, and I think that she'll get another win under her belt here.
Yeah, I can see it going quite similar. I mean, one thing that always sticks in my mind with Jennifer Maia is the Casey O'Neill win. And on the London card, I think everybody was very high on Casey O'Neill at that time and kind of thought that this Maia fight would be a standout fight for it. It wasn't to be. Maia completely shut her down. In what was exactly like you said, a pretty dominant performance in the grappling. It's kind of like a neither here nor there fight. I mean, you've got Araujo coming off, two losses. So Hebas and Grasso. Grasso, we know where she is now. Amanda Hebas is kind of another one who's in and out a little bit. She can really perform and then she can really switch off in some fights. Hard to say where I'm going to go with this one. I think I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to say that Maia's going to grind out a 3-round decision, not particularly one to get us excited about. What does get you excited on this card? What else are you looking forward to in terms of the main card or even on the prelims? What sticks out?
I'm looking forward to the Martinez-Giannis fight. I think that'll be a good one. Giannis is coming off that knockout loss to Rob Font, isn't he? And but before that, he was on a 9-fight win streak and looked amazing. So it was a bit of a shock when Font kind of came out like that and knocked him out. It was kind of back and forth up until then, if I remember correctly. But Font kind of shocked a few people with his aggression there to kind of knock out a guy like up-and-coming guy like Giannis. But I like Giannis to bounce back here, though. I think his boxing is really good, his footwork and how well he's able to kind of close the distance. And I think that'll be a problem for Martinez because Martinez is a kicker, he's a heavy kicker. Giannis is a great counter striker too. But Martinez is on a 5-fight win streak here, so and he's beating guys like Cub Swanson most recently, Saeed Nurmagomedov. So he can't be slept on. But I think that Giannis is so skilled. He'll be hungry to get back on track. He was just starch and dues before the Font fight. But I really think this one is going to be fun. I think this is probably it could well be fight of the night. It's a cool stylistic matchup.
Very cool. Yeah. I really agree. I think that has got fight of the night written all over it. They're both ones. I think Martinez is 13 and Yanez is 14. So it's one of those where they could flip positions. I think it could be really wild. I don't think it'll go very long. I think they're both going to come out. They've both got points to prove, and they both want to make, again, a statement in this division, because you could quite easily leapfrog quite a few people and get a big fight, because there's big names further up there. Dominic Cruz, Pedro Munoz, people like that. Sonya Dong, I think's got a fight booked, or no, I'm not sure, but he's another one, right? You win this fight. I think you win this fight, and he's someone you could call out realistically. Obviously, I think if you're Yanez, you want to avoid Rob Font because he's beaten you already. So you want to try and get somebody else. So that's who you would call out. I don't know where I'd go. Honestly, I have no idea where I'd go for a prediction. I think it could go. I think whoever's going to catch the strike the other one doesn't see coming is the one that's going to win it. I don't know either way. I think they're, like you said, both really evenly matched. I won't sit on the fence. I'm going to go with Yanez. I'm going to go for Yanez. I think he's going to make a comeback with his boxing. Who do you think? Who do you have for it?
Yeah, I feel like Yanez is going to make a comeback as well. Yeah, I think he could make another statement here. I hope he does anyway. I really like him. So yeah, I hope that I can see Yanez doing it. Yeah.
And then Michel Pereira finally getting a fight. Finally, not having one get cancelled yet. Yeah. Right. Well, it almost got cancelled, right? Because the other guy dropped out and Andre Petrosky jumped in. It's good to see Michel Pereira back in there, right? I would love to have seen the Wonder Boy fight. Hey, obviously it didn't happen, but it's good to see him back in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this guy is so talented. He's so crazy. But obviously, he has toned it down. We don't see all the flips and the crazy stuff anymore. Gassing out after like the first round because he's just empty in the gas tank, and sometimes it worked for him, but then he was kind of exposed. But this one's at middleweight, am I right?
Yes, I believe so. I don't know where
else.
To
185.
Yeah, I don't know if. Let me just check. You've caught me unawares there. Where is he?
So
Michel Pereira Petrosky. Yeah, 185. It looks like.
Yeah,
185.
Yeah, I thought so, and that's probably a good idea for Pereira to move up after the weight issues that he had last time around. I'm not that high on Petrosky. He's won the last 5, but there's no big names there. I mean, his wrestling is pretty good, and so is his jiu-jitsu, but I can see Pereira winning this one, probably by TKO or KO. He's, as I said, he's certainly toned it down when he's kind of focused and on it, and he's worked on his gas tank, and he's not burning out so quickly after doing all that crazy stuff fairly early as well by TKO or KO, as I said.
Yeah, when he jumps around like a wild man, he does tend to gas out. Yeah, I'm keen to see him back. I think he will make quite short work of Petrosky. Petrosky won his last one by split decision. He's obviously a friend of the show. We've interviewed him with the YouTube channel, to go check that out as well if you want to hear a bit more about his background. Sound guy, really, really sound guy. I think Pereira, especially coming in short notice, I think Pereira will get the better of him. Some other ones to look out for is Cameron Saman, the South African, who is Dricus du Plessis' long-time kind of partner. I won't say sparring partner because he's a bantamweight. So there's a bit of a mismatch there.
Yeah, not good. Yeah, he's undefeated as well, isn't he? He is,
yeah, 9-0.
Yeah,
9-0. So he'll be a fun one. Darren Elkins is always fun. TJ Brown, we've got interview with him also on the YouTube channel, so definitely go and check that out to give you some kind of skin in the game, so to speak, to get to know the fighters a bit better. And finally, will be Melissa Dixon coming out of Lions Gym in Coventry. So that's a good one to look out for. She's debuting on the undercard. So a nice bit of British interest on the female side, which you don't see too often, aside from maybe, your Molly McCanns of the world. So that should be a fun one. She's about halfway up the prelims. But hopefully it'll be one of those sleeper cards. So hopefully it turns out pretty well. There's definitely some exciting fights on there. Definitely Martinez, Yanez, and Pereira Petrosky, and the main event. Hopefully also will be pretty entertaining. Anything else you want to touch on, Alex, before we head off? Anything else on that card?
I think we pretty much covered it, to be honest. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. I think we've got everything. So go ahead, check out the website. We will have previews for both Yusuff and Barboza coming up later this week. Alex, did I see you put your hand up for one of those articles?
Yes, Barboza.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
So Alex
Even though
is,
I think Yusuff will win, I'm gonna go with the Barboza article because
yes.
just the fact that he's got such an extensive history to write about and some of the most viral knockouts that we've seen. So it'll be fun to watch those back as well.
Yeah, so check out Alex's article. That'll be up on Thursday night, as tends to be with our preview pieces, more in-depth pieces about the fighters, and we'll have Yusuff up for everybody as well. Other than that, we've obviously got TJ Brown on the YouTube. We've got Petrosky on there as well. And yeah, just keep your eye out for everything. Do all the good stuff, like, subscribe, jump on the website, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You'll find us everywhere. And yeah, engage in the comments. Alex, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure spending the last hour or so with you. Enjoy the fights, and I think we'll have a big get together next week for the massive card going down in Abu Dhabi, the Makhachev Charles Oliveira card. So we'll get the three of us back together to watch you and Nathan just go at it for 20 minutes and then talk about some fights.
I don't want this to escalate too much. He's a sound guy. Knowledgeable guy. But yeah, I mean, I might, who knows, stick around. I might have a sneaky dig about the fact that he's gone away. So
all right, Sal, thanks a lot, mate. Enjoy the fights, everybody.
Cheers. Bye-bye.